During the Japanese occupation, Jehovah's Witnesses were persecuted because of their Bible-trained conscience. Among those who did not give in to Japanese imperialism to the end for a religious conviction, the best representing group with the largest number of the affected is, I believe, Jehovah's Witnesses, who are religiously misunderstood in our Korean society. In January of 1939, 2 Japanese young men were drafted. Because of their conscience, they refused to serve. That prompted the Japanese government to begin religious persecution against Jehovah's Witnesses. The Japanese government was preparing for the Pacific War, and that is why they were so concerned about the impact of conscientious objection by Jehovah's Witnesses. So, Jehovah's Witnesses in Japan and Korea were arrested and imprisoned. During the Japanese occupation, my maternal grandparents were put in prison. My grandfather for 4.5 years and my grandmother for 6 years.
Also, my uncle and my aunt were put in prison during the Japanese occupation. My uncle for 4 years and my aunt for 6 years.
So, 2 Koreans serving at the Japan headquarters of Jehovah's Witnesses were put in prison in Japan. After spending years there, one died in prison, and the other was released and returned to Korea when the Japanese lost the war.
Another uncle who lived in Tokyo was also put in prison in 1939. He spent 4 years there and died in prison. Thus, 3 generations of my family spent a total of 28 years in prison because of living by conscience.
Among them were my uncle and my aunt. After being beaten and tortured for over 2 years, my uncle became terminally ill. And right before his death, he was temporarily released on bail and died within 8 hours. The 1988 yearbook reports on the prison experience of Sister Sunok Chang.
In prison, they handcuff one hand behind our back, with the other hand drawn over our shoulder. Sometimes they put double handcuffs on us, and sometimes 2 persons were chained together back to back. During that time, they had to change our handcuffs to the front each time we had a meal.
Jehovah's Witnesses have acted consistently, refusing to bear arms for their conscience. Strictly speaking, Jehovah's Witnesses refused to cooperate with Japanese imperialism more than anyone else did. For example, they refused to participate in Shinto worship to the end. They were sticking to their religious conviction, which is not inferior to the liberation movement at all, and is so precious. They sacrificed their lives for that. I think their actions should deserve very honorable recognition.
The history of Koreans fighting for liberation lists Jehovah's Witnesses of the Japanese occupation period as liberation activists. Of course, they did not fight for liberation with guns in their hands. They simply chose to follow a course of conscience and conviction. Although their course then is highly esteemed, it's sad to see the very same course of living by conscience today is regarded as being anti-national.
The only difference is whether they were arrested by the Japanese or by the Korean government. That's been the only change. Although they have acted consistently, it's been claimed that what they did during the Japanese imperialism is something to be praised. But now that we are under the Korean government, they should not refuse but should join the army. Punishing them like that is an inconsistency. All those desiring to live with godly devotion in association with Christ Jesus will also be persecuted.